Welcome back, and for those who are joining us, good morning. My name is Desire Kahiha, and welcome to the Government Information Center. Today we are having the Namibian Standards Institution, and they in February had stakeholders consultations on the review of their standards regulation. And right now they are here to give us the key outcomes and also what is next, the next steps that are planned. And in studio, we do have Ms. Etukata. She is Etukata Nashima, pardon me. She's the Acting General Manager for Certification. And she is accompanied by Ms. Lahya Hambinga, and she is also the Acting General Manager but for standards under the Namibian Standards Institution. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
And you can see they're very prim and proper, upright. They are keeping standards. I need to start getting along with these standards. Thank you very much for joining us. And I think we will jump right into it. And I'd like to have Ms. Hambinga just give us an indication of why was it necessary to review the standards regulation of 2013 and what gaps or weaknesses were identified.
Thank you, Desire. And thank you for having us once again. So the NSI, the Namibian Standards Institution, is gearing up towards and through our 5-year strategic plan. And with that, we would actually want to enhance our ability to serve Namibia better as one of the key pillars of the national quality infrastructure, and therefore responsible for the to ensure, the standardization in Namibia, as well as to provide quality assurance through our conformity assessment services. So it was therefore deemed necessary to ensure that there is alignment with the regulatory aspect and also alignment to our international regulatory frameworks, and further also just to ensure that we're implementing the national quality policy. And therefore it was necessary for us to then amend and review our standard regulation as well as the rules to ensure that we strengthen the ability to really serve Namibia better. And also just to fully serve Namibia, and as well to ensure that our mandate functions are fully implemented.
Okay. But with this, were there any weaknesses and gaps that were identified?
Yes, there were gaps identified, and within those gaps, we're seeing gaps with regards to the development of standards and the fast tracking of development of standards in terms of emergency services, and also the administration of compulsory standards, which was also not really fully administered or detailed in the regulation, and further the administration and the enforcement of those compulsory standards.
Okay. Now we see why we always have to relook at things.
Yes.
It's not always business as usual. So we are changing up things. And at this point, I'd like to ask Ms. Nashima, what are the most significant changes being proposed in the revised standards regulations? And in practical terms, how will the revised regulations then strengthen consumer protection, public safety, and how will they prevent substandard products from entering our market?
Thank you, Desire. And what, as my colleague has already alluded to, it was important that the reviewed standards regulations really is aligned. And as such, we needed to ensure that the process of standards development is fully enhanced within the new revised standards regulation. It was also quite important that in a similar manner, we needed to ensure that in any cases of emergency, as you all remember, COVID was one of the most common examples. We needed to ensure that consumers are protected, and in those cases, hence we then needed to review the standards regulation to enable us to be able to develop standards in a fast manner in cases where there's emergencies pronounced, and we should be able to equally be recognized and as a developed standard as in any other standard. Also, what was also quite important for us is to ensure that the compulsory standards, which we really do not have within the existing standards regulation, is fully then also amplified within the standards regulation. Now, this is a process under which the minister can declare standard compulsory, as then also outlined within our Standards Act, and that has now also then been included within the reviewed standards regulation. Now, in terms of the practical terms and what it means to every person on a day-to-day, what it really means is that the standards regulation will enable the NSI to administer technical regulations. And what technical regulations will do is ensure that any commodity, services that has been declared or that a standard has been declared as compulsory is then regulated, and meaning that any imported products or locally manufactured is treated the same. So what we are really doing with this is ensuring that we are leveling up the playing field, and it's not only for our local manufacturers, however, also for products that are to be imported into the country. And in that manner, in it all, we then are really then ensuring that we don't have substandards product within our country, in our markets, and our consumers then at the end of the day fully protected, and that's ensuring that we fully then are utilizing our mandate as per the Standards Act.
Wow, wow. I'm loving the work that is going into this, and I think at the end of the day, as a consumer, it's a happy sound to my ears, because it makes me feel protected. And as you're saying, also leveling up the playing field. I think in that way, it also ensures that our products at some point are able to, be comfortably exported, because then you know that they are playing at the same level as others out there. So great work. I'm appreciating. Moving on to Ms. Hampinga now, and I would like to understand what is the main objective, or what was that main objective that led to the stakeholders consultation being conducted by the NSI in reviewing these standards and regulations, and also who participated? Who were these stakeholders, and why was their input that critical?
Transparency in regulatory aspect is very key.
Yeah.
And it is key because you need to gather input. And your regulations, or your intended regulations, should gather and should provide all comments and inputs from all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders. And it was also very important for the NSI to follow the same transparency provision. We are part of the WTO, and for the WTO TBT agreement, transparency is a cornerstone, and we needed to ensure that we comply to that. So therefore, inputs from our regulators, from our from the industry, from the people that are affected by this are very key, because we need an inclusivity in that regulation and our rules. And for that, we needed to have an inclusive regulation as well as the rules that highlights the comments from both regulators, really the industry players. So that was actually the main objective of us doing the consultation. The consultation, the way we actually went around it, we created awareness. Okay. We went out to the newspapers, to our social media platforms, to our websites. We even went on by sending physical, letters to the relevant stakeholders, to invite them for the stakeholders. And we needed to make sure that we have relevant stakeholders, and those are the regulators, those are the private sectors, those are our importers, our exporters, those are our manufacturers and producers, because those are the people that should really have a key in the standard regulation and the rules. And the reason why we're doing it, it's definitely so that we have an inclusivity and that the regulation is technically sound. Yeah. And that it's transparent. That's really the reason why we had to follow the transparency provision of any other technical regulations development.
I like the fact that it included so many, actually, it wasn't just your boardroom people, but no, your manufacturer, somebody who's directly affected by the standards, the regulation, pardon me,
Yes.
your producers, your exporters, you had a pot of a bit of everybody. Now, I come back to Ms. Nashima here, and I'd like to find out what measures are then introduced to strengthen, or have then been introduced to strengthen the market surveillance as well as enforcement.
Thank you, Desire, for the question once again. So in terms of the measures that have been introduced that are also part of the standards regulation, is that we have really then also outlined what are the powers of our inspectors. Now, inspectors are quite crucial when it comes to compulsory standards administration, because these are the people that will have to come into the facilities, they have to do market surveillance, meaning they have to go out to the market and really see the quality of the products that is out there. Is it in compliance to the compulsory standards that has been declared? So it is then the powers of the inspectors that will then authorize them to be able to enter facilities and for them to be able to carry out their works, and really also just amplify on the approach towards market surveillance. Now, market surveillance can be, what exactly is it? But it's really for us to be able to go out to the market, and market, it means it could be a manufacturer's facilities, it could be a distributor's facility, it could be a shop where the product is being sold, where we then go and see, are the products on the market in compliance with their requirements? Products can be sampled from the market, be tested for us to determine compliance to. So these are really some of them the amplification that we have added within the standards regulation protection.
Yeah, very true, very true. Ms. Hambiga, we looked at the strengthening of the surveillance and so on. Now, I'd like to find out from you then, how does this review then now align with Namibia's national quality policy and the broader national development goals?
National quality policy is one of the fundamental frameworks or policy that the NSI is a key stakeholder to. Yeah, and for that we need to ensure implementation of the NQP, and we actually the agency that is of the NQP, and we actually the agency that is spearheading that implementation of the NQP. So therefore, the revised NQP for 2020, I think 2025, directed that the products that are manufactured and imported in the country should comply to set standards as well as conformity assessment services. And as I alluded to before, the aim of the objective of the reviewed regulation was to ensure and to strengthen the NSI's ability to serve fully its mandate, and our mandate is to ensure all set standardization and standards, and as well ensure quality assurance through the conformity assessment services. So that is how the national quality policy aligns to the reviewed regulation. And really, when you look at the broader strategies, we really aligned, or you can say that the reviewed regulations is aligned with NDP 6. Yeah, and that is really on the national quality infrastructures to ensure that they is strengthened, to ensure that there is quality standards, to ensure that there is conformity assessment services that are done in the country, for therefore to ensure that we protect our consumers, to protect our plants, animals, health, and also to facilitate trade. Because only then, when you are comfortable that your products are adhering to specific set standards, that they are able to flow into other countries without barriers to trade. We actually ratified to the African Continental Free Trade Areas. So this is actually one of the main reasons why we need to align and really ensure that we have align all our legislative tools to ensure of that. Thank you.
That's great. You mentioned conformity assessment there in your response, and it's with that then I then ask Ms. Nashima to just give us or explain a bit to us the key concepts such as your compulsory standards and, as Madame stated, conformity assessment, and why are they important to the public?
Thank you, Desire. Compulsory standards, especially when it comes to Namibian context, is a standard that has been declared compulsory by a minister, and that declaration has been done in accordance to the Standards Act, Section 20, subsection 6 of the Standards Act, and that's what really a compulsory standard is. And when it comes to conformity assessment is really just a process under which an independent body. Now, what can we refer to as an independent body? It could be a certification body, it could be an inspection body, where they make that determination that a commodity or a service or a document complies to either a Namibian standard, which we refer to as NAMS, or a compulsory standard, which is a Namibian standard which has been declared compulsory by a minister, or an international standard, or technical regulations. Wow. So that is what really a conformity assessment. Now, as I mentioned, conformity assessments then can include your testing, it can include your inspection, it can also include your certification. Yeah. Now, why is also all this important? It is important because services usually would go for certification because services are not products, but they can also be equally certified or be declared to conform to a product and be certified. However, products are then also required to be tested before they can be confirmed to comply to a compulsory standard. And that's why you see that conformity assessment encompasses the three aspects, which is testing, inspection, as well as certification, and metrology on the side, which is also quite important for measuring aspects.
Well, I'm back to school, my people. I'm not going to lie, but this is why I love this platform of ours. I think at the end of the day, it teaches us what is happening around us. We get to know what the different institutions are there for and also what they're busy with to try and ensure that we stay up to standard and also make sure that whatever it is that we're doing, whatever we're producing, is not just at a local Namibian standard or level, but it is also upgraded and it can, be on par with international requirements. I move on to Ms. Hambingai, and at this point I want us to go back to the consultations. They have now been concluded. What is the next step that we're looking at? Are there any time limits, timelines to implementation? How can the public continue to stay informed and get involved?
We're very excited that we have concluded our consultation, which we did in February, as you actually alluded to. Yeah. Now, we actually at the stage where we're finalizing the draft after the consultation, just to make sure that we have incorporated the input. And then we will then do the institutional frameworks with regards to ensure that our line ministry have the consolidated document.
Yes.
After that, the national legislative requirements, where you need to do the gazettings, where you need to do another awareness after that. That's actually where we are. So at this point, we're just finalizing our reviewed and draft regulation and the rules. So, and then after gazetting, we will then go back to our stakeholders to just, let them know that this is the document, this is what you, what we have, consulted on. And then after that, the enforcement will then start. Yeah.
Okay.
The enforcement will then start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ms. Hambingai is speaking of enforcement, and there is a whip coming, clearly. But let us see. Ms. Nashima, how are the new regulations? You see, Ms. Hambingai here is speaking about the enforcement, the draft, the gazetting, and thereon. But With regards to our businesses, so that they know what it is that's coming, how will these new regulations then support the ease of compliance? Because I think that's the important part for people to try and avoid any negative parts that come with the reinforcement of these documents. So how do we then support or ease the compliance of businesses while also improving competitiveness and access to regional and international markets?
Thank you for the question. It is important to know that under the WTO, and my colleague is an expert at WTO, I must say, every country is quite allowed to be able to formulate technical regulations. And compulsory standards are really just technical regulations as well. And what that does is that it does not only, and equally to that, they also emphasize on the fact that we make technical regulations or compulsory standards based on international standards. And by basing them on international standards allows for then our local markets to also be able to trade at international scales and be able to demonstrate compliance to standards and to international standards due to the fact that standards have been, or compulsory standards are maybe based on an international standard.
Yeah.
And it really just allows for there to be a fair application of standards.
Yeah.
A fair trading opportunity, meaning that a product imported is treated the same way as a product manufactured locally, and also for everybody to have an opportunity to be able to demonstrate compliance at all levels, at all time. And what we've also realized is that it really allows for the business community to be able to get that competitive edge, to be able to trade at an international scale by demonstrating compliance to those specific standards. And you can boast to say, I meet requirements and I meet standards requirements and I'm certified, or my product is tested and it complies. And you should be able to also leverage on better prices on the fact that you do have a quality product and a compliant product.
That's true. That's true. As we round off this particular session, I'd like to give the opportunity to my guests this morning to just give us their message to us, the public, to us, the producers. Ms. Mpinga, what would yours be?
I would really say our stakeholders, I encourage you to look out, to be wary of our website, www.nsi.com.na, our social media platform. That would basically be our form or channel of communication with regards to the update of this regulation and the rules. So please, stakeholders, I call upon you to please follow our website information as well. Please follow our social media platforms. Thank you.
Ms. Nashima?
All right. My message really is just to encourage manufacturers, consumers, importers to fully participate in any stakeholder consultations that we are going to have. This is not going to be the last of the kind we are going to have. We do have more consumer protection aspects that we will consult on, especially that are standards related and compulsory standards related. And we really just encourage manufacturers of any kind to really ensure that when we do a call out for participation, consultation, they fully participate so that they ensure that their voices are heard, so that we listen to what their concerns are, and they also participate within our standards development processes so that they make sure that they equally contribute to any standards that we are then developing for any sector within Namibia.
Okay. Well said. Thank you for that. And I think I would like to applaud the Namibian Standards Institution for coming to our platform to give us an update. You know, a lot of us tend to always want to find out, so you said you were doing this, how far is it? When is it coming out? So this is that type of platform, and we are glad that you're utilizing it to its fullest. That was the NSI, and they recently had consultations, stakeholders consultations, for the reviewing of their standards regulations. And today they just wanted to come and give us the key outcomes that came from these consultations and just give us an insight or highlight on what the next steps are so that we know and can follow the process that this changes and the review needs to follow before it comes into full fruition and goes into implementation phase. Thank you for joining us whether you're in your boardroom, your office, your living room, or even on the road somewhere. Thank you very much. It is with you that we can make this particular platform actually happen. So we are highly grateful. From myself and my guests here in